Hey, sixth graders. I am talking specifically here to cohort B because cohort A, you are currently seeing me live. But this will be a reference point for a lot of things. So here's the deal for today. Some greetings that we'll be doing in class. For the rest of you, I wish I could talk to you. I hope all your Wednesdays went well, your Thursdays going well, and it bodes well for the weekend as well. What I am going to do is I'm going to introduce the Write Like an Author assignment. This is our first kind of big, really big multi-day. If you remember, we did the slideshow about like you guys created the slides about yourselves, and that was kind of big. Excuse me. Whoa, it's the end of the day. This is bigger because I'm going to push you to write a little bit. So let's get right into it. The writing assignment is write like an author. And basically what you're trying to do is mimic Paul Fleischman. He's our guy right there. Okay. And if you know what a mimic is, this is a picture of a bunch of butterflies that mimic each other. And the whole point of mimicking is to get someone to, or get something to treat you like something else. Or at the very same time, to blend into an environment. So if you think about it, like these butterflies, these might be predators right here, right? Or one of them might be a predator. And it's mimicking a non-predator so that when it gets near its prey, it's like, oh, that's a harmless butterfly with that design. And then boom, they lure in their prey. It also might be to blend in. So maybe this is a butterfly right here that has a poisonous it's a distasteful butterfly for some birds. And this one might not be distasteful. And so it's going to mimic this, or it's going to mimic that. And it's going to sort of make the bird think like, oh, it's one of those yucky tasting ones, even though it probably tastes delicious. So nature has a way of mimicking, is a way that we look at something or we design at something like something else. You're going to be a mimic, and your benefit will be so you can tell a story like Paul Fleischman, a writer who really knows what he's doing. The assignment is this: write a new chapter in Seed Folks with a new chapter based on you, which we've already kind of prepped for. So this is the good news. So let's go through it. The document actually is right here, and it'll be in Google Drive, and all of you will have this assignment in your form. So you're going to open up this assignment, and it will be yours. Like I'll make a copy. So here's a couple things we got to take care of. First of all, you're going to say, Mr. Slaby, what are the requirements, right? And the requirements are, it's got to be 1 to 2 pages. So I'm asking you to write a little bit more. It could be a little bit more, could be no less. You can't tell a story of any kind in 1 page, really. So it's got to be between 1 and 2. I'm going to have it be double spaced, and I'm going to have you be edited. So I want you to worry about your, dot your I's, cross your T's, capitalize names and places, and worry about where your periods go. I want to see all that. Those are basics. Those are fundamental stuff. So here's what double space, just so everyone knows. It's just like take something like this, and in Schoology it looks differently, but basically you're looking for line spacing and you want to make it double. This is what it looks like right here. Here's what double space looks like. We do it so that your annoyingly bothersome ELA teacher has space to comment on your work, point out things, and overall help you become a better writer. Because the truth is, writing is the most important skill that can open doors of opportunity for you. I promise this. Guys, that's not an exaggeration. If you know how to write well, you open doors for yourself left and right. If you're not a great writer, less doors are open. What I mean by doors, I mean opportunity. So that's it. It's got to have some requirements. And you're going to ask me, when's it due? It's going to be due on Monday. Okay, that's in the assignment. All right, now first thing, you can't just dive in and start writing. We're going to try to mimic Paul Fleischman, so we've got to review how Paul Fleischman writes. So what I gave you on this document is 4 links to chapters with 4 characters. I think they're particularly interesting chapters that have something to do with how a character sounds, how they talk, and those are cool things to latch onto. So first thing is to click on each one of these and just read a couple of paragraphs. Don't read the whole chapter. And just kind of pay attention to how Paul Fleischman is doing things. So think about how the people sound. So they're speaking in first person, because your story should be first person, right? We talked about this on Friday. And it should, like, you think about how long they make their sentences. Some characters make them shorter, some make them longer. That's a decision you have to make. Story details. Some characters go into really interesting details. Like if you think about Curtis, he spends so much time on those tomatoes, but they're important to him. Virgil doesn't spend as much time on the lettuce as much as on that locket. That's what he's mostly about because it makes him think. Leona tells a long story, not about an object, but about her actions of trying to get the trash taken care of. And Nora spends a lot of time talking about Mr. Miles and where he comes from. So, who and what your character talks about is really a good example of how to show your character. And lastly, special phrases. If you think about, like, Leona uses a lot of phrases that sound like she's old. Really, they're called colloquialisms. They're phrases that people use that they're comfortable with. Like for me, I say, hey, don't throw that person under the bus, right? Someone from another culture would be like, what the heck does that mean? Don't do it. Don't hurt a person. And that's my language. I use that phrase. And I use the word ridiculous a lot. I love that word. Obliterate. These are words that I use specific to me, and they would show up in my story. So after you paid attention, I want you to remember that you actually did this. And if you did it when I asked you to, this work is done, which is about creating yourself as a character. Then you go and you're going to change something. You could change the age, you can change the gender, you can change definitely the name, and you can change a few things, but you should base it off everything you know, which is you. All right. Now, the real meat is not yet ready to begin. It's the brainstorming. So here's the thing. You have to brainstorm before you start writing. It's really important you kick around some ideas. So I've made it so that you can do this on your document. So if you think about it, I'm going to have you make some decisions right away. For instance, my paragraph happens during the season of, I'm going to choose for my story, spring. My paragraph happens right around when Curtis's tomatoes are ripe. So use a reference point in the story. So if you want your reader to know where you're writing from, you could say any number of things. For instance, I could be like, when Marcella has her baby. That gives us an idea where we are in the story. Or when Virgil's dad gets a second crop of lettuce to grow. So that's months later than when it went badly. And then when Kim, you could just actually go right to the beginning. Your character can show up in the beginning when Kim just planted the lima beans. You get to choose. That's the power of choice. All right, now here, decide three things that will happen to your character in the garden during your chapter. So first of all, my character will be worried about this. Is a teacher worried about students not graduating? So my character is going to be a teacher, surprise, who's worried about students not graduating. That's something that they're worried about. My character will do this. So that's what they're worried about. What they will do is my character is going to plant flowers in honor of different student stories. So they will talk about students that they remember and their stories, and those flowers will represent that. That's what my story might be like. Lastly, last couple, my character is interacting with other characters. I get to pick other characters to put them in the background. If you remember, a lot of characters show up. Tiowan shows up everywhere. I want to have Curtis in the background. I don't know how he's going to show up. I might talk to him, or my character might talk to him. And I want Virgil to show up. And it might just have my character describe seeing this one kid holding a locket and staring at it. That'd be Virgil. Lastly, the artifact connected to the garden my character will treasure in this chapter is a marigold flower. So remember we talked about artifacts, things that have meaning? You could put the artifact you shared in class in your story. It's just got to be something, some sort of object that matters. I love marigold flowers. And so when I pick flowers, that's my favorite flower. It's one of the first ones I ever knew what it was. If you remember in class, I shared this, right? That could show up too, but I chose for this case the marigold flower. All right. Now, let's talk real quickly about why this matters. And it does, because this is your story, people. This is really, writers write what they know. They write their stories into other stories. And it's a story that I think maybe that you should feel you want to tell. It could be funny, it could be serious, it could be embarrassing, but it's got to be related to something that you know. So here's what I'm saying. These are 4 bullet points of students that I know I've had in my classroom. They could feel the need to write their story. So here's one, a story about a character that's battling some mental health issues with their doctor, and the garden would act as like therapy. I have a student who could say that. Here's another one, a story about a character that has a dad or mom that disagrees with issues of gender being fluid, but the garden is a place where gender doesn't matter. I have had a student who maybe could write that story because they've dealt with gender issues. How about a story about a character for whom the garden is salvation, or it's like rescuing them from a pandemic isolation? All right, that sounds pretty familiar to a lot of kids, right? And then lastly, a story about a basketball fanatic who can talk about basketball with other gardeners. That is a really interesting case because I have a lot of kids who love basketball and they can't do it. So this would be a story for them to get that out. Okay, so you could be any of those, but it's got to matter to you. So don't write something that doesn't, because who cares about what I think? I just want to see your writing and you apply the skills of writing and try to look at an author and mimic that. I don't really want to ever limit you on what you want to write about as a subject. All right, lastly, after you've brainstormed, and you got to brainstorm, I'm not going to let you go forward. The document, the Google Doc at the bottom, this is where you start. So if you notice, right here is where you are going to put in this, you're going to put, I wonder if I forgot to finish that, in place of, replace this with your name here. All right, we can get rid of that. This is where you're going to put your name. So you're going to get rid of this at some point, and you're going to put Colin Slaby, and you're going to get rid of the highlight too. If you don't know how to do that, I can walk you through that. Replace this with my name here. That's Mr. Slaby, and replace this with ELA, so ELA 6, and then this would be the days here, day, month, written. So ultimately, this is today, this, oops, 19 November 2020. This is how things would work. And then I'm going to give my character's name Jackson. Okay, so that's how everything should look. And eventually, I want to get rid of that. So I don't want any highlight at all. And then I can start writing. So after you've done all the brainstorming, that's what you do. Okay, so guys, that's a lot of information. I'm going to walk you through it. But the next 2 days in class will be dedicated to working through this. Okay, if there are any questions, obviously fire away, but the directions are there. This document will be right in here. So if you think about it, this is an assignment. And in that assignment, you will have to open up the document, and this will be due on Monday. So you will probably, like, I know that right now, no one's even opened this, so everyone's in progress. Eventually, you'll be submitting this document, and we'll walk you through that if you need to know. Okay, hope you're well. Hope this helps. This should be fun. Be creative. Here we go.